Hello there, Romans here and welcome to my next music review. Today it's going to be Kino, Radio Voltaire.
Music review. Music review.
Kino is a British supergroup where the leading member of the group seemed to be John Mitchell. Based on the music and on his side projects, it seems like he's responsible for writing most of the music, even though that the new record may be a collaborative effort. John Mitchell is especially famous from being a guitar player for Arena and participating in many projects like Frost or having his own project Lonely Robot. What I really appreciate him for is the group It Bites, where he was pretty much responsible for their comeback album in 2008 called The Tall Ships. And this record is one of the best records I've ever heard, and that really means a lot, having heard more than 3,000 records. It's such a masterpiece. I love that record. It's kind of a shame that the follow-up record, Map of the Past, was so much weaker compared to it. And apart from all his other projects, Kino was a very similar music to It Bites, The Tall Ships. And the first album from Kino was just beautiful and really amazing. I love that record. So 13 years later we have their second album called Radio Voltaire. As a huge fan of the first record from Kino, I was really looking forward to this one. So I've heard a new record 8 times already, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. Even before I start, I must confess that this record was a pretty big disappointment for me. I'm gonna explain why. So let's start with the first track, which is a title track, Radio Voltaire. Now it's a pretty much traditional neo-prog / Brit-prog pop kind of song, but the problem with this song is pretty much where the problem with many other tracks lies, and that's that after having heard the track for 8 times I still can't really remember the melody. And some of you may argue that progressive music is written so that you would have to listen to it more and more times in order to find the melodies and appreciate them. But I don't think that's really the case here. Just listen to the album Violence from Editas, which I did a review for something like 2 weeks ago. And it was also a record that took me quite a long time to get into. That's why I couldn't decide whether to give it a final score 8 or 9 points out of 10. And I said that I'm gonna take a few more days of listening to decide whether to give it 8 or 9 points, and then I wrote in the comment section that I'm giving it 9 points. And that record just keeps growing on me. It's one of the best records this year I've heard, and it's just really amazing. But with this track, it's just, you know, I've heard it 8 times and I don't really remember it. The second track is called The Dead Club, which is slightly heavier. It's got a very psychedelic synthy vibe. It kind of reminds me of a computer game, Alice in Wonderland, that was like in 2000, a horror computer game. I think that it kind of reminds me of the soundtrack from that game. And the song is just, it's kind of interesting, but it's not really my cup of tea. And you can also hear that keyboards are pretty dominant on this record. The third track, Idlewild, is a piano-based pop rock tune. This is the first of a few tracks that I really liked on the record. It's got a beautiful melody. I really love the guitar solo that kind of reminds me of the song Coming Home from Sounds of Apollo. And there was a guitar solo using a fretless guitar, which I think this song would really benefit from. And I really like it. It's a great song. The fourth track, I Don't Know Why, is slightly more energetic, maybe more positive. It's a song that really reminds me of the last record from It Bites called Map of the Past, which wasn't really that good. And this song, I mean, there is a line between the chorus that goes like, I don't know why, but I've been told. But this melody is just so stupid. Anytime I've heard it, I was like, I had to facepalm, really. The rest of the song is not bad, but it's kind of like okay, nothing really special. The fifth track, called I Don't Break So Easily Anymore, is sort of another energetic pop rock tune, but again the songwriting is pretty much average. Temple Tutor is another ballad that is acoustic guitar based. It's got a beautiful melody, I really love it, and this song kind of reminds me of a Hungarian rock group Edda, that's written E-double-D-A, and they have kind of similar style of writing ballads. The song Out of Time reminds me of Kansas, especially Carry On My Wayward Son. It's a song that, yet again, is slightly average. It's got a mid part that is slightly more psychedelic, reminding me of the computer game Alice in Wonderland. and it's got a bass solo, but generally, you know, it's like, again, not really that much happens in the song. Warmth of the Sun is a short track, it's under 2 minutes. It's got a nice atmosphere, it's again more of a piano-based track, and I like the orchestral arrangements. Grey Shapes on Concrete Fields is arguably the best song of the record. I just wish more songs were written like this one, because the songwriting is really great here. It's, in terms of style, it's very similar to I Don't Break So Easily Anymore, just with much better chorus. This should have been the leading single of the record. Keep the Faith is a song where in verses you hear that sort of a keyboard sound that really reminds me a lot of the sound that Strawberry Fields Forever from the Beatles is based on. It's got very nice orchestral arrangements in the middle, but apart from that, it's a song that's, again, slightly more average. The Silent Fighter Pilot is the last track of the record. It's got very cinematic vibe. It's a pretty okay song. So to sum up, I must say that this record was a pretty big disappointment for me. At times it reminds me more of the record Map of the Past from It Bites rather than from their first album. This record doesn't really surpass its predecessor. The first album was just so great. You know, the thing that made the first album great was the songwriting. And this record just, you know, it doesn't work for me. Every time I review a record, it comes down to one question. Is this a record I would want to listen to again in like a year or two? And the answer is not really. Despite like 3 or 4 pretty good songs, that's it. The rest just didn't work for me. I've seen a few reviews. It seems like people are getting pretty excited for this record. I don't know. For me, it's 6 points out of 10, which I'm giving very sadly. This is
How many?
6.
It's okay.
This is definitely a record I would recommend only when you have nothing better to listen to, or when you are like a really die-hard fan. I don't really like giving more negative reviews because I try to build up my channel on promoting music. I like to give people suggestions what music to listen to. So therefore, if you haven't heard anything from what I've talked about, definitely check It Bites, The Tall Ships and Kino's first album. These 2 records are huge. Among the best records I've ever heard, especially the Tall Ships. So in Slovak, Radio Voltaire means Radio Voltaire. Voltaire, it's kind of the same. But the funny thing is that the name of the band, Kino, in Slovak means cinema. So I was listening to cinema.
You are cinema.
Interesting. I never knew that. So I hope you liked this review. You can write down in the comment section below whether you agreed with me or you didn't, whether you heard the record or you haven't. Don't forget to share, to like, to subscribe. I'm gonna have my own record released very soon, so the first official video, and it's going to be prog rock music without guitars, and instead there's drums, bass, saxophone and keyboards, making that record pretty much unique worldwide. So subscribe for that. And thanks a lot for watching. And if there are any bloopers at the end, then you can watch them. Just. This is a really great song. This is another really great song on the album. Ako naznačiť?
Naznačím.
As I naznačím before, Chips from the Bites are two...
Suggest.
Zlatko, to nehovor mi teraz, keď rozprávam.
Adumbrate, blodskin, blodsk out, foreshadow.
Whatever.
Hint. Indicate, insinuate, intimate, motion, odline, signifis, plus, suggest, stu, impli, tu.
Idem domov. This record definitely doesn't surpass his predecessor. This record definitely doesn't surpass its predecessor. I hope you liked this review. If you did,
Don't
sorry.
forget to like, to share, to subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Ach sa povie pozor.
Julka.
I will release album in next 2 weeks, or I don't know what, and check my album every time.
Every time.
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day is so wonderful. Na na na. Na na na. Christina Aguilera.
It's hard to pray.
Whatever.
Now and then.
Music review.
I am your father.
Come with